our outlook on this campaign and on running senior caucus and all that kind of stuff is to be a face that people in our grade can come to and can ask questions and can give us suggestions for things that they want to change. And we're here to help. That's really what we stand for.
Actually, the word that I would use to describe myself is already in the campaign, and Zoraiz and I came up with this together, and it's zealous, even though it is hard to find an adjective that starts with the letter Z. I think zealous, it perfectly encompasses us as people and also our campaign, because we want to do as much as we possibly can to give back, as Zeynep was saying, towards the senior grade, towards the students that we went to school with for in 4 years in the future, and also help foster a community where we as students come closer together, and there's no disconnect, there's no competition that's unhealthy, for our mental health and also for our physical health. We want to foster a community where people can talk to each other, become friends. And through being zealous, that means putting in the effort, putting in the work, and doing what needs to be done in order for the campaign to be successful. And I think we've done that and shown that.
Okay. Also, Hana, would you like to describe equality too?
Sure. It's similar to what Zeynep said, but I think both of us together is a really interesting combo because our friend circles don't really overlap. And part of that just means we have interacted with so many different kinds of people and different groups of people. And I think I personally am also friendly, but also it's not just getting friendly just for like the political gain or whatever. I try to, I don't know, just be in different associations and just meet as many different people as possible, whether it's through like Irshad or the Writing Center. And I think just that one-on-one communication, once you know who your representatives are, that like breaks down the boundary, and I think that's what's really important.
Tying it all back to accessibility, our first pillar.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so going along with what Hana said, how will you and your running mate employ an effective partnership? Who wants to start?
All right, so my running mate is not here right now. I'd like to explain the reason why. Is because she is actually finishing her final research project for the urban barcoding project, and this is a final, research project where she presents to a crowd full of people about what she has done throughout, the past 3 years. And so it wasn't possible for her to be here today, but she does send her condolences because she is very disappointed about not being able to make it and was extremely her schedule. But also in relation towards how we will be able to implement an effective partnership. Zoraiz and I have been friends for about a year and a half now, I would say, and we met through mutual friend circles, and what struck me the most was her charisma, and she says the same thing about me, which I mutually agree on each other's, best qualities. But I think our partnership has already been fostered, and we've managed to perfect it, and our relationship dynamic, although you can't see it right now, you can see it online where we comment on each other's posts, and whatever we're able to share and whatever we're able to give towards the students will come through our partnership and how we've already developed it.
So we actually met this year because we had 5 classes together for a semester, so that was like a work of fate, I think. We definitely got closer through those 5 periods a day, and I think we're very compatible in that we're both outgoing, but we're also not like, in your face outgoing. We're just we have the capacity to both be friendly but also be more serious about it, and that's how this partnership kind of came about. And we actually talked about this yesterday. I was messaging her about some of the policies and what we were going to do about it, and she was like, I've never had such a positive conversation with someone, and we just like to bring good vibes to the caucus and just keep everything positive and respectful between us.
An interesting thing to note is that Hana and I ran against each other last year, and so obviously, there was like tension, I guess you'd call it then, but moreover, it's just that the two of us come from different ideas, and we ran on different campaigns last year, but we're a good combination of all different aspects of Stuyvesant, and that's what makes us special.
Awesome. Okay, so this is a submitted question, but it sort of contrasts from the previous question. So why didn't Hana or Zoraiz join Caucus or SU this year if they were so eager to serve the student body? Obviously, Zoraiz isn't here, so.
Yeah, it's answer that question, but I think I can answer for her, and that is because she already has a lot of research projects on her plate that she was finishing up this year, and they were a culmination of years worth of work. But she was already talking to me before junior year even started about how she wanted to make a positive change within the student union, and I told her that she should apply for a position, and she did. And I think I'm not sure for which position she applied for, but she ended up not being able to make the commitment because of other commitments that she had to attend. And I think that shows an important balance, and we're not willing to sacrifice our time. She could have easily taken on the position and, you know, said that I'm willing to compromise, you know, my time here and my time there. But I think, you know, the full commitment to one job and doing our absolute best in that regard is what, you know, stopped her from doing that. And I support that, because I think that you should give your 100% and not, you know, just half or, you know, a third of your attention towards something that's as important as anything else.
Hi. So actually, I did apply to the student union. I didn't make it in, but I did make an effort to be part of it. And I think this ties in with the whole outsider thing. Not Zoraiz, so sorry, Julia said. You don't necessarily need to have experience to be an effective leader. And while I do have the experience from previous years, I think me not being like an insider of the student union or caucus contributes to this fresh outlook for a senior caucus. But besides that, last year I ran mostly on the alumni website policy, and this year the student union caucus, the senior caucus, actually worked on it. So while I wasn't physically present to work on these ideas, I was affecting change in the end, and I think that's what happened this year.
Okay. So yeah, also related to what Julia just answered, this is another submitted question, but why has there been minimal communication with the grade about your ideas when the campaign season started a week ago? If APs and finals slowed down your campaigns and resulted in minimal campaigning, how do we know that we can trust you to do your job with college apps and a stressful workload?
Do you want me? Okay, so I'll answer that and saying that you can trust us because we have put our reputation on the line. That's just the first and final statement. But also, the reason why we started campaigning late was because we were actually perfecting our campaign and making sure that all our policies were implementable. And we were talking to students and getting their initial feedback about what they wanted to change for the senior grade and what they wanted to enact in the future. And so I think releasing our policies prematurely or releasing any documents prematurely that would have stated, you know, false promises or given false impressions would have been unnecessary and also misled the student body. So I think that, you know, taking our time and making sure that everything was detailed and as precise as possible and worked out and all the kinks are, you know, resolved was beneficial, and that's why I started campaigning late. And why you can trust us in the future is because we have done our absolute best to show you and be as transparent as possible with our policies, and as I said, we were working on them in the past. And so the trust comes from a mutual communication, so mutual respect will be able to establish, you know, your trust of our campaign in the future.
Awesome. Zeynep and Hana?
So I think it's about knowing the student body, and it's easy when you are a junior. Everyone has been busy with APs, not just us, but the entire student body. And when you're campaigning in a setting like that where everyone's so tense and focused on this test and that test, you're not setting yourself up anywhere. You're not reaching anyone because all of them are buried in their books. And while that is an unfortunate consequence of going to Stuyvesant, I think that you should know your student body as well as they know you. And so I think actually trying to campaign during AP season would have not been as effective as
It would have hindered our communication.
Okay. So moving along, both campaigns have included a lot of proposals on communication. So how do you plan on improving communication with the student body and with other caucuses and the student union?
So firstly, the junior caucus this year began to implement a monthly newsletter that we sent out for the first 4 or 5 months. And I will admit that we did begin to falter on that just because we felt that there wasn't a lot of information that pertained to the junior class that was different from what was coming from Mr. Blum and Miss Ingram and all that kind of stuff. And so we tried to put our attention elsewhere, and so that we were using our members as effectively as possible. But we do know at the same time that communication, there's a lot that the senior body needs to know that's going to be different from what Miss Ingram or Mr. Blum is sending out in their emails. So we want to bring that back, refine that, make sure that we're getting as much information as possible. And also in terms of communication and college-related communication, we've proposed creating a calendar that will have all the important dates, not just like the big ones that everyone knows when Common Apps are due and all that kind of stuff, but scholarships, important ones that we know that a lot of students will be applying to, and send reminders about those things to make sure that people are staying relaxed, but also have a good reminder of when they need to do the work that they need to do.
Thank you.
In terms of communication, I think I already answered this previously, but it would be through signing up for Facebook notifications, and as well as perfecting our email strategy skills, because I feel like a lot of students feel disconnected with the, either the language or the way that the timing of the emails is, presented towards the students. And so I think that, sending the emails either more frequently with students consenting to sign up for the email list, and also for communication between the caucuses and the SU, I think that there's a lot of, disconnect obviously between the grades, and the students don't communicate as easily as possible. And so, and I think that in order to facilitate this, there should be obviously a Facebook group for this as well, where students are able to talk to each other about the policies, and have students that are not in the SU or just in general want to comment on policies or changes that are to be made can view this content and see what is going on, and having this wall between the students and the leaders shouldn't be a reality. It should be hopefully in the future let down.
Okay. And so both campaigns have also mentioned multiple new ways of fundraising in their campaigns, and also new events. So how do you plan on working with the indicator to manage all of this? Who wants to start?
I'm part of Indicator. Yeah, so I'm editor on the literary department. So I think whoever becomes editor-in-chief next year, I shouldn't have too many problems working with them. But for Indicator, they do all. I think the problem just with working with different bodies of students is that there isn't enough communication, and me and Zeynep having that that open, friendly, entire thing, I think that would that would facilitate a lot easier of a time to set up events together and work together with both the union and Indicator, because I know that Indicator is also would appreciate a lot of help. I don't know if other people know this, but sometimes they're short-staffed, and I think the caucus and union can make up for that.
It's never our intention to step on anyone's toes, but we have access to materials and knowledge that will make running these sorts of events easier. So we definitely plan to partner and to communicate effectively.
Okay.
Through partnership with Indicator, actually, we have two events in mind that would benefit this, communication. That would be the Secret Snowflake and also Snaps. And so I think both those events should be run in collaboration with Indicator, because they will help not, one, just reach the entire student body, better, because they have access to not only materials but also campaigning. In addition, I think that, Snaps would help, in communication with the Indicator, Snaps would help students, prepare for AP season. And through enacting this policy, we would, in general, be able to reach more students more effectively than we would have been able to do on our own without Indicator's help. And through implementing the other campaign policies such as spring fling and fall or winter homecoming, depending on what the senior grade votes to be the most popular option, I think those events are obviously to be done with fundraising in and outside of school, and also through the help of not just the entire caucus, but hopefully the student union, to make it not just for the senior grade, but potentially for the junior grade as well.
Okay, amazing. So that's it for the general questions.
Okay.
And yeah.
So now we're going to get to specific questions for the tickets. Diana will start us off with Zeynep and Hana's ticket.
So, being an incumbent, how do you look to change the way you've made policies, and how does your experience separate you from the and this is a submitted question. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
So in terms of being the incumbent, having a year of caucus experience as a co-president behind me, but also I was a part of freshman event planning, and sophomore year I was the director of event planning. I think I've learned the best way to effectively run a department on a smaller scale, but also how to incorporate the student body's voices as much as possible. We made some mistakes in terms of our caucus structure this year, and I think the number one thing that my experience has taught me is how to listen to my caucus members as best as possible. And so we are encouraging open membership applications throughout the year. So instead of having just one season of caucus applications at the beginning and then you can't get involved later on, we'd ensure that people who are interested, every few months they can apply and become part of caucus, especially as more important events such as graduation and prom come rolling. But I have a relationship with the student union and also with the administration, and so we know how to talk to the people who are in charge and get information and help from them.
Okay, so now a specific question for Julia's ticket. So this is also a submitted question. Someone wants to know, how do you plan to make up for your lack of experience or involvement within SU with your running mate?
I think that I already have, the amount of experience that is necessary in order to run this, in order to understand the structure of the SU and also the caucus. I was part of the student union for 2 years. I was a budget manager, and I'm part of the clubs and clubs department this year. And I think a lot of the management that I've done within those 2 departments has directly, either interacted with the caucus or in general has some of the same end goals as the caucus has. And in order to make up for our lack of experience, or Zoraiz's lack of experience, which isn't really a lack, we would help, one, establish more communication with students, but also 2, we've already had multiple experiences with political campaigning outside of Stuyvesant. So Zoraiz and I actually bonded over a mutual leukemia fundraising campaign, and that was part of the LLC campaign, which runs nationally, where students run Student of the Year campaigns within their schools in order to raise money for leukemia and lymphoma research. And I think that a lot of our campaigning within that campaign itself has taught us a lot about campaigning in general. And so I think that can be brought within the student to the senior caucus at the forefront of the table.
So now we'll move on to another question for Zeynep and Hana. So your platform seems to structure the senior caucus, such as establishing committees tailored to specific events and projects for efficiency. How will you ensure that creating more divisions within the senior caucus will contribute to greater efficiency? More committees for specific events seem more unnecessary work instead of having projects for permanent departments.
So the reason why we wanted to restructure caucus in that manner was that we wanted to really emphasize passion for a certain project. Just because you want to help with prom doesn't mean you want to help with graduation planning or whatever. And I think that the student body, they might not want to be involved in one period of time just because they have other commitments, but later on they might want to participate in other events. And I think that's why having this continuously changing caucus is also more open to the student body, because they can get involved at any time, and it just increases that accessibility and the ability to participate within the caucus.
This senior caucus should be open to the senior body, and if it's more work for us to have to read more applications, then that doesn't matter. But in terms of getting more people involved, that's our goal.
Thank you. So back to Julia. Can you elaborate on the sports events under your team spirit building in your ticket, in your platform? Would this be encouraging more students to attend games, or would it be more along the lines of pep rallies? Could you clarify that?
So it would be encouraging more students to attend games and encouraging pep rallies, because I think both are necessary in order to foster Stuyvesant spirit, which we have been lacking in previous years. I think, right now we've been doing a good job to foster it, but it's still, the effort has been faltering. And I think through encouraging intergrade activities, such as, dodgeball or capture the flag, or any of the above activities that we have done, since middle school, as bonding and facilitating, connections between students that will be lasting longer than just that one game, and possibly even into the future beyond Stuyvesant. And so, those activities are crucial for relationship bonding.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to be moving on to the section where you can ask each other questions about each other's tickets.
So we'll give you 20 minutes and.
Oh no, we'll give you, let's say, 10 minutes.
Wait, should we give them some time to formulate questions?
10 minutes.
Okay. Either of you can start asking each other questions.
We're curious as to how the big alumni program that you are proposing is different from the mentorship association, and also just what sort of communication you've had with the alumni association to that regard.
Yes, so I was actually part of the alumni mentoring program last year, yes, and I formed a good relationship with Eleonora, and so I think that has helped me into furthering the program and also the benefits that I can offer to the students. And so the way that the big alumni program would be different was that it would be held after school in Stuyvesant as a club, and would also receive funding from the SU in order to have alumni be present after school on a daily or almost daily basis on when the club would meet, in order to have students to have easier access than commuting to somewhere where they can't on the weekends, and also having more availability for the students themselves in order to do resume workshops, in order to have conversations about college and career paths. And so I think that would be crucial, because getting the location here where students can reach it, instead of and also where they can form relationships outside of Stuyvesant, outside of 5 o'clock, and that would be more important, more beneficial than it would be just outside, as the alumni program currently is, meeting on weekends and also having low student attendance.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Is that all right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the troubles that we had as a junior caucus this year with getting more alumni integrated programming had to do with problems of what happens if there's an inappropriate relationship between the alum and the student, all that kind of stuff. But also, just more logistically speaking, alums are working every day. So did you talk to Eleanor about like getting them to come after school?
Yes.
And
Yes, so I'll answer both questions. I talked to her about getting them to stay after school, and they would say that they would be willing to do this, but only on specific days that they would sign up for. So like, of course, we know that every alumni's availability is limited, and so we would have a sign-up sheet where they would sign up for certain days, and students would be able to see which careers or which potential alumni would be there after school this particular day, and then if they're interested, they can come and see and talk to them. And so the problem with getting alumni here and also having like an inappropriate relationship would be that this would be done under the guidance of a faculty advisor, either Eleonora, either Yanji, either some other faculty at Stuyvesant High School who would be responsible for the Stuyvesant Mentoring Club, and to make sure that those relationships stay professional and do not exceed the boundaries.
Okay. Do you have questions for Zeynep?
Yes. So, could you elaborate again? I think this was asked previously, but on how and why you plan to establish these committees about prom committee, events committee? Because I think that a student should be committed to all activities going on in the senior grade and not just one, and then kind of like drop out of political interests if they're not interested in a certain activity that they're not currently working on.
Well, a lot of schools have prom committees, just in general. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen like Disney Channel movies, but like those like concourse and that kind of stuff. But I think that saying that a student needs to be completely dedicated to caucus, that's our job. We're dedicated to caucus our entire year. And of course we're going to have directors and members of our board that are there throughout the entire year and who make a commitment. But we think that saying that some students don't deserve to be involved in planning their prom, even if they have really great ideas, just because they're also not interested in planning atrium events or working out budgets for policies or all that kind of thing. We think that that's not fair to the student body, and we also think that it's actually that kind of thinking that propagates so much of the tension in between the student body and the student union, this idea that it's so separated, and we always talk about like voter apathy and these big enigmatic words, but at the end of the day, what's the point of the student union and the senior caucus? It's to help and to be part of the senior class. And so we think that this reformation could really help bridge that gap in a way, and further our friendly face policy. Yeah.
Follow-up question: how many people would be on these committees, and how would you select them, and how the selection process differ from if they were applying just to senior caucus?
So, in terms of logistics, the prom planning committee would begin obviously several months before prom actually begins, because a lot of effort goes into planning big scale events like those, such as J-prom. Come to J-prom. So the size would matter on student involvement, and obviously if people were involved in the event planning committee of the senior caucus or previous caucuses, we would take that sort of experience into account when we were reviewing the applications, but it wouldn't be make or break. The idea is to get as many people who are involved and who can show us through their applications, which will be similar to, for example, junior caucus member applications from this year, that they have that time commitment and are really interested in making prom or graduation or atrium events or whatever it may be the best that they can possibly be.
Any other questions?
The first one.
Okay, so you proposed a spring fling, and that sounds really cute, but we also have prom in the spring, as we're all aware.
Yes.
So that's kind of a conflict of interest. If they're going to spring fling and they're going to prom, it's more money for the party of like the student behalf, and we already have problems with students not being able to afford prom. So we were wondering about that conflict of interest and what you would do to address that, or like why should we have a spring fling?
I think the reason why we should have a spring fling is that it would be able to gather student spirit and also help bridge the gap between just having student activities such as prom, which are grade wide, and also having a student interaction where students would be able to not just communicate about they're graduating this year, but communicate about all that they've accomplished this entire cumulative year and after AP season. So I think that spring fling should be held earlier than prom would be held, about 2 or 3 months apart. So like the earliest that spring can start would be spring fling. hopefully maybe end of April.
Start now.
End of April. And so this would, again, in regards to financial aid and students being able to attend, I think that it should be held within Stuyvesant High School. It shouldn't be like a super formal event where people have to pay, $100, because it's not worth that. It's about student spirit. It's about getting you involved. It's about getting, a night off that you deserve rightly after your senior year has ended, or almost ended. And I think that would also significantly lower the cost of attendance, and if students are not able to attend, then I think we should also offer financial aid for that. I think financial aid in general for any events should be offered, of course in limited quantities and as much as is available, but it is our goal to make it as affordable as possible and not make the tickets, expensive.
Okay. Any more questions?
You also mentioned working with Indicator to do you
Okay, so since I'm on Indicator, I've been on it for a while. I have communicated with the budget directors, and I'm not gonna obviously say how much we make or whatever. That's confidential.
Yeah.
But you want to have a lot of events with Indicator, but Indicator, while I'm sure the head editors will be willing to consider that possibility of having student union support and caucus support, they are going to be a bit hesitant on splitting the funds for fundraising for both caucus and Indicator, just because of the way Indicator also makes their money, and we also need to, make the yearbook for the senior class. So we were wondering what you would do to address that.
So I think that the fund should obviously remain in a separate fund where it would be joint. So if the heads of the Indicator do agree to these proposed policies like such as SNAP and Secret Snowflake, I think that there should be a separate fund where a small portion will come from either side, and then this will be able to funnel the project itself. So the project will be independent of the two organizations. It'll be a collaborative measure where if we're making profit, then they are making profit as well, and it should be even. And I don't think that there should be any divide or confusion over who is making more or who's making less, because it's really not. If it's a joint effort, we're putting in 50-50, and that effort should be rewarded accordingly.
So that'll be it.
Oh, okay. So you said you were putting your reputation on the line for this.
Yes.
I was interested in that because I also ran against Zeynep last year, as you know, and I never thought that I was putting my reputation on the line. I thought it was just, promoting democracy. I was a student, she was a student. We both had the same, qualifications to run no matter our experience in caucus or student union. So I was just curious about that comment.
I think that quote stems from the fact that I think the face of your campaign is inevitably your reputation. A campaign is a reputation that you build either from the ground up or what's already established or what you are planning to build. And so reputation stems from your individual character. I think every campaign, regardless of when they run or whether they choose to run or not, has a reputation, and it doesn't mean that it's popularity. It doesn't mean that it's how well people know you. It's about what you're able to put into your character. And so I think for me, reputation directly correlates to character, and I think character is something that all of us possess. And it's not about putting my sacrifice on the line. It's not about sacrifice. It's about showing honesty and transparency. And so I think that my character is what I can offer to the students before they're able to see what I'm able to enact and what Zoraiz is able to enact alongside me. We put our name and our face on the line. That's an expression that I use. It's what we have to bring to the table, and everyone has something to bring to the table.
Okay, thank you. So now that we're done inquiring each other, what is one policy or initiative that you support from the other ticket, and what is one policy or initiative that you would improve upon? You'll have 2 minutes to answer.
I like that question. You want to go first?
You can take all the questions. You can take them.
Okay.
I, for one, really like the idea, actually, of having more dances. I think that it actually very much vibes with what we're talking about in terms of atrium events, just having more opportunities for the senior class to de-stress, to have fun. And I think that that's something that those two ideas could easily be combined and juxtaposed, and I think that that's the ideology that's coming behind it. I think that's really cool.
the policy that I like the most, actually the calendar that you guys are planning to enact, and I think that goes along with improving student communication, because I think there's been a real disconnect about students, applying for financial aid, or students that, qualify for reduced lunch, and how they're going to be able to afford college. And I think that scholarships, especially alumni, also opportunities that are available to us, would be so much more easily managed if they were all on one face and one calendar, and that would be super, I know every senior would probably appreciate this in their senior year.
Okay, thank you. So now's the chance for the audience to ask questions if they do have any questions. Anyone?
Do we have enough time to answer
We do.
all the audiences?
Yeah.
Oh.
13
I
minutes.
think we're running low.
Critical higher order thinking question.
DOK4.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind ending this whole thing right now.
Me either.
Okay, since we don't have any. Oh, okay.
So you guys haven't mentioned a lot about senior dues, and that's usually something that is a very big thing for seniors. It comes in the very beginning of the year, and you're expected to pay a big sum. Also, somewhat lack of awareness on your part for not knowing that these dues actually go into your yearbook. So your year and senior classes are actually both paying for the yearbooks that kind of you're talking about. So in general, how are you going to make this process easier? How are you going to try to reduce costs? What kind of things that you thought about? It's the first thing you'd probably be working on. And the second thing would be, who do you want as your graduation?
I'll actually take the second question first. Who do I want as my graduation speaker? I think that it should either be a Stuyvesant alumni who has done, some kind of political activism work and can reach to the students, or I think a good option is also Bill Nye. I recently went up to see the Cornell graduation, and Bill Nye spoke there, and he mentioned a lot of things that I think would be Stuyvesant students would be interested in hearing, and I think that he's also a common figure that a lot of us know and have seen in our science classes throughout middle school and elementary school. And that would really bring the senior grade together, because I think there's a lot of hidden science passion within Bill Nye that can be expressed in the Stuyvesant student body. Also, the first question, in regards to senior dues, I think that senior dues for now, yes, they might seem like an excessive amount, but if you think about how they're going to be divided in regards to the yearbook, in regards to graduation, in regards to everything that the senior year is all about. They actually come down to be pretty fairly distributed, and that they're not a lot. There's no over managing in certain areas and not managing in other areas. And so I think that lowering senior dues would actually have a bad effect on some of the policies and them being able to be enacted, because if you lower the dues, then there might not be enough funding, and what if there's not enough outside funding for those events? Then students will be able to have their best senior year possible. And so I think that either lowering them as much as we can without infringing on those events and those possibilities available for the senior grade would be the best option, but we're not sure how realistic that might be in regards to the fact that we are probably already running low in that regard.
One of the one of the most important and effective things that the senior caucus, Amit and Hana, have done this year is effective communication of senior dues and all that kind of stuff, and also being strict on the way that senior dues were processed and making sure that students were aware of when all that money was due and all that kind of thing. And so following in their stride and following in everything that they've done, continuing that pattern, because I think we completely agree with what Julia is saying is necessary for us. That money, we're a public school, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on senior year, a lot of things that we give to our seniors to make their year as great as possible. However, we're obviously working, both of us have talked about fundraising, but it's such an important part of our platform, making sure that yes, you're paying this big sum for senior dues because it's necessary and we need it at the beginning of the year, but all these other things that we're hoping will be not as expensive, for example prom for those who can't afford it, and more events throughout the year, just to make it more fun. So even though we don't necessarily believe that making the cost of senior dues at the beginning of the year would be most effective, because we are aware of how important they are, we have implemented, and we are planning to implement a series of policies that would just make the rest of the year that much better.
Okay, thank you. So.
Oh, and graduation speaker. Oh, do you want to take this one?
Graduation.
My dream graduation speaker is Michelle Obama. Also, I follow her Instagram, and she's lovely. I think that it's important I've been to the past 2 graduations as a chorus member, so I've gotten to see the graduation speeches, and I think that they're really important, and then they're such a, climax of that ceremony. And, they've been male for the past 2 years, and there's 4 people sitting here, right? And we're all female, and I think that obviously we're representing an entire student body, so we're not saying that the graduation speaker has to represent everyone, but I think that would be a cool change to hear from a powerful woman for our year. Yeah.
Does Hannah have a speaker that you would like?
A speaker in mind? I mean, if it was a dream speaker, I would have J.K. Rowling come in, but that's a dream. But I really like the idea of having a Stuyvesant alumni come in just because we have that personal connect, like what Julia said. So, yeah, I think, or Michelle Obama would be totally good. I mean, we've been talking, me and Zeynep have been talking about next year's graduation speaker, and Michelle Obama came up as a favorite between us. So, yeah.
Okay. So for our closing, could you describe your campaigns with just a brief 1-sentence slogan?
Mine is already pre-written, but zealous in action, get the gist.
Very nice. We represent the DNA of the class of 2020, and we want to make your senior year really, really great.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes the 2019 Senior Caucus debate. Yep.
Yeah.